Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Just Do You podcast. My name is Eric Nicole, and I'm your host. If you are a first time listener, welcome to the conversation. And if you're a regular, I'm honored that you've decided to join me for another episode. The Just Do You podcast is centered around a network of conversations which are meant to connect us, to inspire us, to find our own confidence, our own voice, and to live our own truth. And who knows, we might even learn a little something new that ultimately allows us to live in the sweet spot that I like to call the Just Do You space of being. Each week, I have the privilege of sitting down for unscripted conversations with friends, family, colleagues, community leaders, and influencers that all share their own personal journeys. I hope that you enjoy our time together as much as I have. We are certainly going to laugh, and yes, we might even cry a little, but in the end, we're going to know that we're not alone during our life's journey. So, are you ready? Great, let's do this. Welcome to the conversation. All right, everyone, welcome to today's episode. I am really excited to sit down with my guest today, and I'm just going to jump right in and introduce everyone to Jon Fischer. Hi, Jon.
Hello, good to see you.
Good to see you. How are you today?
I'm doing good. It's like slightly sunny in New York, and I have a tank top on, so I'm pretending like I'm in Southern California with you. But
I was gonna say, I'm cold and sitting in a long sleeve shirt next to the dog, and you're in a tank top in New York. So
yeah, I'm faking it.
I love it. I love it. Welcome to the podcast. I am really excited that we connected. I'm going to take a second just to introduce you, and then we're going to just jump right into the conversation because it is a conversation that I have been looking forward to having. So, for our listeners, Jon Fischer is based in New York. He's affectionately known as Coach Cub as well. He's a board certified health and wellness coach, a podcaster of the popular Body Talk, and a facilitator who has worked with hundreds of clients in the bear community who want to learn to love themselves and their bodies. And as I was spending some time, Jon, in your social media and your platform and your webcast, one of the things that captivated me so much, as I mentioned to you before we jumped on to record, was this just immense sense of joy and positivity. And I think that's something we all could use a little bit of right now. But I also really loved your commitment to working with people to love themselves, to love their bodies, to be self-confident. And that's really what this Just Do You podcast is all about. It's about finding your confidence, finding your voice, and living that truth. And so I'm excited to join you today. So welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
One of the things that I read on your website was a quote that you put that you said, imagine what it would feel like if you could wake up in the morning, look in the mirror, and not criticize yourself or point out your perceived flaws. And you work with your clients through reflection and discovery and community and taking the steps that are necessary to uncover this body confidence. So we're going to talk about a couple things today. We're going to talk about body positivity. We're going to talk about joy. How do we manifest and create joy in times of, let's just face it, craziness that we're in and
Mhm.
chaos? But then we're also going to talk about the bear community. I mentioned to you, I obviously am a member of the LGBTQ community, but I have never really ventured into this conversation of the bear community. So I want you to explain a little bit about that and share with our listeners about that community that's so special. Before we do that, though, I do like to take my guests back a little bit. I'd love to know a little bit about the young Jon. Where were you
Mm.
born? Where'd you grow up? Were you only child, parents, grandparents, that thing? And then share a little bit about your when you came out as well. And I think that'll set the stage for our conversation today.
Yes, and I just got out of therapy, so like the prime is pumped. I'm ready to go, or the pump is prime rather. Yeah, I always explain my childhood as there are phases.
Mhm.
So I grew up in Connecticut, not far from New York. I had I'm the middle of three boys, and like the first part of my childhood until I was like 10 was very like nuclear family, living in a new development in Connecticut, just classic like American dream life. I had a dad who loved to travel, so I was privileged to be able to see different cultures and spend time in Europe and have we did like the a program where you adopt a family who come
Oh, yeah.
to the area and you get to show them around. This is all pre-internet, so we had families from Japan and Germany, and so it was very like cultured. And then when I was 10, my parents got divorced, and it just blew up my
Mm.
life. And shortly thereafter, my dad actually came out of the closet. So I had a gay dad in like the early 90s. So I got to experience secondhand or firsthand, just like the homophobia of that time. And
Mm,
that was the tail end of the AIDS crisis. And it made me and my family different in a
mhm,
town that was fairly, like, not super conservative, but like 90s Connecticut. So that was a really difficult time. And I went from being like this little goody two shoes kid to acting out and getting in trouble and would get thrown out of class. And when I tell people now, like the things I used to do, because people see me as this like grounded, nice person, I'm like, I got suspended, I got arrested, and sold drugs and got in fights, and so it was really chaotic
mhm,
childhood. And all the while, like I just completely shut down my sexuality because it was hard to process because I had a
mhm,
gay dad who was going through his own stuff, and
mhm,
it was just tricky. And you hear that sometimes now. Like I've worked with a lot of clients who like their brother comes out and then they don't come out for a long time. Or so it was a dark time, and I really didn't see a future for myself. I didn't really do well in school, and so yeah, I didn't have a lot of hopes for myself, and I didn't see a future. I think a pivotal moment was in college. I studied abroad in Ireland, and that got me out of the story of my childhood and my life, and I was able to
sure.
like meet new friends and be in an environment that was a little bit gentler and kinder
Mhm,
than going to college in New Hampshire where people were getting in fights. And I never felt like I had room to grow or reflect. So
mhm,
that was a really pivotal moment. I met a lot of friends in Europe and was able to just be myself for a moment. And then about 2 or 3 years later, just when I got out of college, is when I came out. And when I came, it was almost like I allowed myself to understand I was gay. Like I shut down that part of me for so long.
mhm,
So I wasn't closeted. I wasn't like, oh, I'm gay, but I'm not telling people. It was like I wouldn't allow myself to even think it or act on it until I was like 22, turning 23. That's when I got back into therapy, but on my own accord and working through stuff around anger. And I remember the therapist, like the first session, I was telling her, oh, my dad's gay. And she said, oh, is your brother or your brother's gay? I was like, no. She said, are you? And I just
mm.
paused and didn't answer. And she knew, okay, we're not going to touch that for a while. And eventually, yeah, it came out that I was, and came out, had a very manic episode because it was just too much at once. It was like
Mhm.
I got to see my life very clearly and how destructive it was and why. And it was hard to process. So I had a manic episode. And then, yeah, it's been an evolution since then.
Yeah.
I tell people at 23, 24 was the first time I decided, okay, I want to take care of my body and myself and focus on my mental health. But I had no tools and I was helpless. So I've been acquiring those for the last 20 years.
It's interesting how we talk a lot about mental health, especially these days in the last decade. It's been become quite a topic, and yet we don't really talk about the tools and what's available. We don't share it frequently. I remember being in school, my coming out process. I didn't come out till I was 24 also. And the years preceding that, the therapy and the hiding and the not admitting and all of that is really difficult. And the stress and the effect that it has on a young child is really remarkable is not the word, but it's remarkable that we actually make it through
Sure.
and
Yeah.
see past that. I can imagine having the news of your father coming out and you processing that as well is incredibly difficult too. And yet he's living his truth. And how do you navigate that as a young child? I'm sure was difficult because again, sounds like there was a lot going on. So I think
Yeah.
it's interesting also to hear the process is it sounds, let me just rephrase that in all the stories that I've heard told about the process and about the journey, there is something that has us see past our current circumstances of the things that we happen to be going through. And even though I think in our minds we don't see a future for ourselves, there's something that's calling us to push through and to move through. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering back then when you were in college, you obviously removed yourself from the environment here in the US and you went off to college, you went off to Europe. Was it community that really helped you make the decision to come out and have that comfort? Or was it because you were just simply away from the circumstances in which you felt oppressed, if that's the word I can use?
Yeah. It's really interesting that you say that because I have always felt like I had this North Star in me. There's always something pushing me in the right direction, even in the midst of darkness. So I always knew growing up, I would leave the house. I had a lot of friends. I was very popular. And in hindsight, it's like, yeah, I had to do that. My mom is very mentally ill and my house is very chaotic. So something always pushed me in the right direction and pushed me to meet the right people. So in Europe, I met people who essentially reparented me. And that's been a theme throughout my life of just like
Hmm.
always knowing somehow, like some intuition, knowing, okay,
Hmm.
like in the moment, maybe I don't understand it, but I meet
Right.
the right people, I do the right thing. In terms of coming out, it's funny because I went to study in Ireland and I had a French roommate and a bunch of European friends. And what I loved was that like there wasn't such rigidity around masculinity. So that helped me just take a deep breath and just like exhale because I'd be like smoking a cigarette with a German friend who had been in jail and was rough around the edges, but he would sit like mermaid style with his legs to the side. I'm like, nobody in the US would do that. Be so afraid of looking gay. So I had this big group of friends. Only one of them came out because he had to, like a female friend of ours was pursuing him and he had to say, listen, I'm actually gay. So it was like one in maybe 30 of us.
Hmm.
Then I left after the semester to come home. A month later, my roommate messaged me with another friend of mine who is Spanish saying, oh, we actually are dating now, two men. Nobody knew they were gay and they came out. And then someone else came out. And then another guy had come out that he had fallen in love with me. And then I came out. So it was like maybe eight of us ended up coming out, but not while
Hmm.
we were together. So it was really
Hmm.
fascinating that we all found each other. And so it's really beautiful. And I'm in touch with a lot of them. But I think it really was just me having a time alone and time to breathe and seeing a different life. Like in the US, it was like, there's no way I
Hmm.
can come out. All my friends are very heterosexual. And I just didn't think it was possible. And I think seeing some softness in people and being in a different environment definitely helped.
Let's just call this spade this. There's an oppression in the US, even still today, that is
Yeah.
just, it's exhausting and it's aggravating. It pisses me off. It just doesn't, it's not necessary. And so what I love too, and even in the recent past, I've traveled to Europe quite a bit for work. And I just love how just everybody, you don't know if they're gay or straight, but the guys are like
Yeah.
giving you a hug and a kiss on the cheek and a slap on the ass. And everyone's just very free to be themselves. And I
Yeah.
remember coming home and just feeling this weight of oppression here. It's like we're just really not able to be ourselves here, which is one of the reasons why I started this podcast. So I'm excited to hear
Yeah.
that this group of people that again, and it wasn't about why aren't you coming out? How come you're not being true to yourself? It's the natural process and evolution of coming out. I think the social media has a huge play in today's youth coming out because it's almost like a forced effort rather than it was for us before we had all this craziness to just come out. I knew I was gay when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. I didn't come out till I was 24 because I was
Right.
terrified. I was terrified. And it wasn't because I had any circumstances in my family other than my own perceived assumptions of how they were going to react. And
But totally.
everybody has that. But I think something that you said is really interesting is that when you look at the group that you were surrounding yourself with, it almost sounds like it didn't matter if you knew their sexuality, if you knew their pronouns, if you knew their backgrounds. What you liked and what you resonated with was their energy, was their spirit, was who they were, not only to you, but to themselves. And it's a group of people that celebrated each other, it sounds. And if this heteronormative guy could sit there in this, I love that mermaid position, smoking a cigarette, and no one's judging it, that's a true sense of being and a space that not everybody gets to experience. So I'm glad that you were able to experience that. And I'm sure it shaped the future for you when you came home. So bring us to you come home, then what happens? What do you do?
Yeah, I came home, graduated college, and then that's when, like a year after I graduated, I came out.
Mhm.
And again, I think that intuition we were talking about kicked in where my body knew I was going to come out before my mind did.
Yeah.
So I graduated and then I was like, let me get a personal trainer. I played soccer throughout my life, but I'd never like actively exercised like that. Decided to quit doing drugs, quit drinking, clean up my life to get ready for the event that was about to happen. So that's when, yeah, a few months later, came out, had a manic episode, and ended up meeting someone like within a month who I was living at home in Connecticut with my dad, and I went out to a club one night on my own for the first time, met a guy who was studying at Yale. We ran around with him and his girlfriends, and I slept over, and then we ended up dating for a year and a half. So it was like I really didn't have any period of I'm out, I'm exploring. It was like I got right into a relationship, but that was also really cool because I got to go from being in a very difficult hetero college environment to being basically I was not studying at Yale, but I was living there and I was in the cafeteria and I was going to parties and it was so inclusive. I
Mm,
remember one night I went out and like at a party someone said the F word and everyone at the party turned on them and was like, get out of the party. And I was like, whoa, that would never happen in Keene, New Hampshire. So that was also a really good environment for me to be in. And there's people from all over the world and different cultures and a lot of gay people. So
mhm.
that was healing to be in a college setting like that.
So, if I can ask a little bit of a personal question throughout this process, then, and how was the journey of dealing with your dad's coming out? Did that take place, or were you just dealing specifically with yours? What was that like?
Like when I started coming out, I think it connected us in a way. I was like, I don't think I had so much I was processing in the
Hmm.
moment that I don't know how much mental capacity I had for him, but I think I had and still have a little bit more empathy toward what he went through
Hmm.
and the difficulty of what he did. Go like having a family and a career and at age 40 in the suburbs coming out
Hmm.
in 1993 or whatever. So I
It's a big
definitely have a
deal.
lot of admiration. Yeah, I have a lot of admiration for him and I see it as like generational healing. He came out that broke the ice. Then I came out, and then I have a brother who has kids who actually lives across the street from my dad and my dad's husband. So now they have two gay grandfathers across the street, and they can be queer and explore, and it's really neat to watch. So yeah, I struggle because it's like my childhood was difficult for many reasons, and now my dad and the way he operates and his sexuality was a part of it. But I definitely have more empathy, and it is interesting just in general having a gay dad. When I came out, he brought me to a gay social hour after I came out in New Haven, and we arrived and I just felt like a kindergartner. I'm like, I have no idea how to act, who I am. I was completely like really helpless because I the only exposure I had to the gay world was through my dad, so I knew all of his friends and I was very
Hmm.
different than them. I grew up
Mm.
skateboarding and playing soccer and snowboarding and whatever. And all of a sudden at this event and people were asking me, "Oh, who are you here with?" And I would say, "Oh, I'm here with my dad." And they're like, "Oh, you have a daddy?" I'm like, "Yeah, like my
No.
father brought me here." So it took me many times of just being embarrassed and figuring all that shit out. And
Jesus.
still people, if I'm with my dad, people fetishize it, which is and my dad's like very clean cut attorney grandfather. He's not. So it can be a little bit difficult with the gays who don't have a filter, but it's
There's a
cool. We
few.
get
There's a
like
few of those.
yeah, yeah, but it's great. Like we all go up to Algonquin, Maine as a family and go to the gay piano bar with my brother who's straight and his kids are at the beach and it's fun to be able to do things like that where it's
That's
we're
awesome.
somewhat in the community and the culture that's family friendly.
Yeah. It's amazing. That's Connecticut. I have a very different picture and a very different experience of Connecticut. So to say that is pretty cool to hear. Again, opens my mind to not being based in assumptions of my time in Connecticut. So that's pretty cool. Did you go to school to maybe follow this coaching journey, or was that not the intent?
Originally, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I studied sociology in college.
Okay.
So I was interested in like psychology, sociology, that type of thing. I really had no idea about a future, and I didn't think I was capable of anything. So there was no like, oh, I'm on a path, I'm gonna do something. My dad's a lawyer, and after I came out, I decided, okay, like I feel like maybe I'm confident enough to explore that. So I took the LSTAT, but I didn't apply. Instead, I had an aunt who was pushing me to move to New York. I think she
Mhm.
saw like from the outside, like this guy's, newly gay, he's living with his dad. It's you got to get out of your town. So she pushed me to go work in the city on Mayor Bloomberg's last mayoral campaign.
Okay.
So I went there, and then that ended up pushing me on a track of working in like politics and campaigning in New York for a few years. So I was
Hmm.
on this path of doing that started dating my now husband, who we've been together for 15 years. And I think all the while, it's like my mental health issues were creeping in.
Mhm.
So I became like a field director, and I was working long hours and working on education reform campaigns, which are very like a hot button issue in New York.
Yeah.
So my insomnia was terrible, my anxiety was so high. And that was also at the point where I was like trying to figure out how to be physically healthy. So I was like studying how to eat well and have green smoothies and do yoga and all these things, but I really needed like serious therapy and medication. So I hit the wall a few times, and then as I was approaching my 30s, I decided I have to leave this job. It was just deteriorating my mental health, and I had nothing lined up. And the people around me were projecting their fears onto me, saying, "What are you gonna do? How are you gonna get money? What are you gonna do with your free time?" And again, that North Star, I was just like, I know I need to do this. Like I have to step aside. So that was the first time I had a few months of like breathing room to
Mhm.
think as I was approaching 30, what do I want to do? And it was that question of what would you do if you're not making money? And for
Mhm.
me, it was studying self-improvement and nutrition and fitness and just consuming podcasts and books and trying things out on myself. And I was also training for the New York City Marathon at the same time. So I was getting a
Wow.
lot of momentum in myself. And that's when I decided, let me explore how I could do this for a living, help other people go through this
Mhm.
process. And at that time, too, I think I realized because I never thought I was intellectually very smart, but I had a lot of soft skills that were really helpful in my career up until then of people wanting to be around me, people opening up to me, feeling connected. And I saw that as, oh, these are all skills that I can easily transition into coaching or doing something person to person. So that got me started about 10 years ago, like in the
Okay.
path that I'm on now.
So before we hit that pathway, let's talk a little bit. I have a lot of listeners who are learning and being educated as they listen to our podcast about our community, our beautiful community. So tell us a little bit about the bear community. Give us a little bit of 101 on that, if you will, because I want people to understand the things that make up individuality and self-expression and joy comes from being who we are, but being also very comfortable in a community that supports us. So I think I love watching my now friends in that community that are just so supportive and it's the word I want to use, so free and so just joyful. I don't think that I've ever been in a group of people that have been happy to be together. And I don't know if that's just my experience, but it is. It's just great to see. So give us a little 101.
Yeah, so it's funny because I'm no expert on the community,
It's
but I
okay.
am creating a body image course and we're
Yeah.
doing some research on the bear community alongside
Hmm.
that. So when I entered it, I really didn't know. I just knew that I think from when I was younger, I was attracted to bigger bodied people. And in my 30s, as I was getting into this work, my body was a lot slimmer. So I wasn't a typical bear, but I was just
Hmm.
attracted to it. And that's actually where I found my first husband was on Bear 411, the website. Or my first husband, my current husband. And so basically, on its face, it's a community of people who accept bigger bodies, hairier bodies. But the background of it is it formed in like the 1970s in California as a counterculture. There was the clone image of gays who just all look the same and have slim, slender, hairless bodies. And that was the ideal. And this was a counterculture to that, to saying, no, we don't all fit into that mold. So let's form our own community and celebrate these things that are normally being judged poorly. So being hairy, having a belly, having a bigger body, having a beard,
Hmm.
all those things are accepted. And I think since then it's evolved. And I think that's why I came in the early 2000s or mid 2000, like 2008 or something. It's evolved since then. It's more and more people are coming into the fold and it's changing the makeup of the community. You can find your own place. When I joined in New York City, it was like, to me, it was like high school. It's like there's so many bears, and then you meet everyone, and then you say, oh, there's like the nerd bears, or there's the artistic ones, or the ones that go dancing. So you find your own
Yeah.
group.
Mhm.
And to me, I just love it. It just was a group of people who were maybe more interested in the things that I was interested in, or more approachable. So again, I didn't really know why I was joining it, but I did, and it has been a huge part of my life, and also unlocked my business when I started
Yeah.
focusing on working with bears.
I think if I can just interrupt for just a second, because I think
Yeah.
this is a really cool pivotal point, and I've said this before and I get a little flack for it, but I sometimes find it really interesting within our own community of LGBTQ plus. There's so many. I remember when I was back in school, it was you were either gay or you were lesbian. I'm a little older than you, but that's what it
Hmm.
was. We didn't have all, at least I didn't know that there was all these like subcultures within this gay and lesbian community. And what I find so wonderful now, and at the same time so surprising, is that our community as a whole still does sometimes segregate, right? And so I found myself in Puerto Vallarta with a friend, was
Mm.
there for Thanksgiving and met someone after a very painful divorce. He, many years after that, brought me back to life, if you will. And I found myself in this bar in Puerto Vallarta, and it's probably 1 in the morning. I don't drink, but was having a great time. Find myself in this bar, and I am terrified. I'm like, I'm in this room full of these gorgeous men, all different sizes, shapes, hairy, just bigger bodies, just dancing and having a great time. And David says to me, "Take your shirt off. Let's go dancing." I was like, "What?" I was absolutely terrified. And
Mm.
what was so funny is he looked at me, he goes, "Eric, nobody cares. Nobody cares." And I realized, and the reason I share that is I realized in that moment that I was one of those cisgendered white gay male buff body having to have this certain image of what it meant to be a gay man ingrained in my head. And here I found myself 10 minutes later in this mosh pit, if you will, of just guys out dancing and having a great time and really enjoying themselves. And it was something that I'll never forget. And I thanked him for that the next day. I said, "Thank you for pulling me out of my comfort zone," because I didn't even realize that I stood in this narrative of what it meant to
Yeah.
be this gay male. And so when I asked the question, like, give us the 101, I knew that there were classifications, if you will, for lack of a better term, bears, cubs, otters, this, that, and the other. There's just a lot of opportunity
Yeah.
to express yourself. And I was sharing with a friend of mine a couple of years ago who is straight. She's hilarious. She's an ally, very supportive of our community. But she said to me one day over dinner, she's like, "How do you all keep it so straight?" And I go, "That's the point. We don't. We just roll with it and you just learn."
Mm.
I am super grateful living here in San Diego now. I've made a lot of friends that are incredibly diverse, which I love, and have really enjoyed getting to know a lot of the members of our bear community here in San Diego and listening to their own journey and their own story of fitting into this
Yeah.
conversation or this narrative that exists. So I'm excited that you're doing this. I'm equally excited about this body positivity and this opportunity to get really comfortable with your own body. Because even if you're not part of the LGBTQ community, anyone who is human can have issues with their body. Anybody can. It doesn't help that we compare ourselves to people on social media. We compare ourselves to the people in movies, in video, in porn, and all of the things and all the areas that we engage in. And I don't think we realize just how unhealthy it is
Yeah.
to get up every morning. And when I read that on your website, I can recall after my divorce, after COVID, I spent the entire year with gummies and non-dairy coffee ice cream from my favorite ice cream store and Netflix. And it was a very difficult year. And I put on a great amount of weight
Hmm.
dealing with my own mental health. And I remember waking up one morning, about 2023, we were coming out of the chaos and the craziness. And I remember waking up and looking at myself because I have these double mirrored wardrobe doors in my bedroom, even though I know that's not very feng shui. I can't change it. I rent the house. But I woke up and I remember getting out of bed and I looked at myself and I will never forget that moment where I just literally started to cry because I was so unhappy in my body. And I didn't realize until I started to do the work, started to go back to therapy, and started to really look at self-care, that that conversation that I was having with my weight, and I fluctuated weight since I was in school, high school, that conversation that I had with weight was really unhealthy. The conversation that I needed to have was being comfortable in my own body, loving myself, being in love with myself, and knowing that it's a process and a journey to get to a place to be healthy. It wasn't about being fit and gorgeous and ripped. I'm never going to
Right.
be that guy. I'm never going to, I haven't seen one pack of a six pack in my entire life. And
Sure.
I always regretted that. I always regretted that. So, talk a little bit, if you can, about this process and this journey that you are committed to taking people through. What is that like to start out feeling so down on yourself and so hard on yourself to coming to
Yeah.
terms with your body? Talk to us a
No,
little bit
I'm
about that.
I'm right there with you. Yeah, I think you said it in the beginning where it's like anyone with a human body deals with this. It's like we all have a relationship with our bodies, and it's been dictated by, yeah, media and social media and expectations. And I think in the gay community it's heightened because we're in an evaluative community. Like the people that we spend time with and that we want to be friends with and meet on social media and at parties are also evaluating us because it's the group what we have sex, we do mating with. So we're always externally being judged. And one thing I learned in sociology is if you're being surveilled, you start to surveil yourself the same way. So if you know you're being criticized, like you on the dance floor, you're thinking, oh, if I take my shirt off, people are going to look at me and criticize me maybe the way that I am conditioned to do for myself and others. So I think we all deal with it. And to me, it is looking at it as a relationship. So we're all starting in from different points, but I think part of it is coming to some level of acceptance. It's hard to jump to leap from not liking your body to saying, "Oh, you should listen to Lizzo and love your body and be the shit." It's like we can't do that. So I think there are steps that you could take, and you have to figure out that path for yourself. But I think it starts with either accepting yourself and coming to a place of, okay, this is what I look like. I can see I know the value that I have outside of my body. For you, it's like I do the work, I have friends, I have a podcast. It's like starting to bring in other value. And if that's impossible, then it's then looking at it in a body neutrality lens of I'm just going to neutralize the feeling. Like I'm just going to look at my body as helps me function. It brings me to work. I get to go on vacation with it. It helps me eat and just try to neutralize it. Again, it depends on what you're able to do. But I think coming to a place where you're either neutral or accepting is
Mhm,
good, and then building yourself up from there. So it's a long journey, but I think part of it
mhm.
is, yeah, finding community and people around you who will help validate you because we can't do it on our own. People always say, "Oh, you got to have self-love." It's like we're social beings. We need to belong to a pack and we need to be validated. Without that, evolutionarily, we feel like we're gonna die. So it's really hard to
Yeah,
cultivate just self-love for yourself. You do need to be around people who are validating and sending
100%.
messages to you and helping build you up. So yeah, I think those are like the first few steps, and then because we're so complex, it's really doing deeper work through therapy
Mhm,
or with a coach or in groups and classes of starting to reflect deeply on like why do I have this image of myself and my body,
mhm,
and how do I slowly start to gently improve from there?
mhm. Yeah, I think everybody wants that instant gratification. They don't want to feel that
Yeah.
way anymore. They don't want to have those conversations. So they're anticipating a quick fix. It's like weight loss. Some people can lose
Yeah.
it very quickly. Some people it takes time. Some people it takes multiple tries to lose that weight. And we're so hard on ourselves. I love what you said about not doing it yourself. Self-care I think has been confused and has been manipulated to be a little confusing. For me, self-care
Yeah.
during the pandemic was the fact that the Postmates guy delivered that quart of ice cream every week. That was self-care
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me. That I could drive through the dispensary line at the
Oh yeah.
dispensary in San Diego and not
I
have to
would
get out of my
I
car.
I would eat bags of Sour Patch Kids in my bathtub.
So,
I loved it.
but whatever that was, right? That was the self-care. And I didn't realize until I caught myself being afraid to have the conversation with my community, with the people, what I call my inner sanctum. I was afraid to have that conversation with them because I didn't want to be judged. I thought they were judging me. And yet, when I look at it, we're all going through our own process to find that health and to find that wellness that we so
Mm.
want. And so it wasn't until I started to have the conversation out loud. It actually took a pretty serious, this last go around took a pretty serious turn. I had a heart issue. I was an AFib and I had to have an
Oh wow.
ablation. And the doctor was immediate, like, you have to lose this weight there's a couple things that we have to do to make sure that you are in the best health you can be so that doesn't happen again. And I remember saying to myself, okay, I need to talk about this more. I need to be able to get this support that I need to be able to talk it through. And yet, what's interesting about the conversations that I have, as soon as I started to have the conversations and talk about it, I noticed that we all started to rely on each other and support each other in this journey of finding that health. And it just so happened to be that most of us in this small circle were dealing with this concept of weight loss, not again to fit in and to mimic, but because we needed to be the healthiest we can be. So
Yeah.
when you work with your clients, you do obviously virtual work and you do in-person work. What are some of the, you say baby steps, what are some of the practices that people can put into play in finding this start to body positivity? What are some of the things
Yeah,
that
I
you ask them
think
to look at?
yeah, especially in the beginning, I think a lot of it is about awareness. So it's taking note of without judgment, like this is going on in your mind when you're in front of the mirror. When you were breaking down crying, it's like, what were the feelings that were coming up? What were the messages? Let's put those down on paper and then let's start to dissect those. Like, where are these coming from? Is this your actual thought or is this something that you've been conditioned to think? I think it's taking a step back and looking at like the lay of the land of, okay, why are we here? It's not your fault. It's just let's get all the components and start to sort
Mhm,
them out. So I
mhm,
think that's the first step. And then it's different depending on each person. Some people start to, so as a coach, I really do help people figure out the path that's right for them. It's
mhm.
not very prescriptive at all. So I usually put it back on them. What would be like one or two small things you could do this week to start moving you in the right direction? For
Yeah.
some people, it's if I go out on a walk and move my body, that's going to make me feel really good. For other people, it's if I start cooking good meals for myself and nourishing myself, that's going to feel good. So it's I help them on whatever path they want to
Mhm,
go on. But I think ultimately, after getting a lay of the land, it's like, how do we start to rebuild that relationship with our bodies
mhm,
and have our
mhm.
bodies trust us and to start to take care of our bodies and respect them?
Yeah. Let me ask you this. So I would assume that there's a multitude of inner dialogue conversations or monologues that we have with ourselves. So do you find that it's mostly when people come to you and they're struggling with this body positivity, is it the image that they see? Are they carrying too many pounds? What is that main component of people that you see come in to start to work with you if they're
I
struggling
mean,
with body positivity?
yeah, I think again, it completely varies because you have some people who, like, I was not heavy growing up, so I don't have that shame and the bullying that some other
Hmm.
people may experience. Some people come to my retreats and to my work because they have a lot of past trauma around having a bigger body and being shamed. Some people are more in the camp of maybe me and you, or as you're getting older, you start to gain weight and your body is changing. So all of a sudden, it's like, how do I now interact with this body that's different? And then other people it may just be a reflection of just a lack of self esteem in general. So for most people, it doesn't really matter what your body looks like. It's like you have certain things that you need to work on regardless. And
Hmm.
you may think that the goal is, okay, if I lose weight, I'm going to be happy and feel more confident. And some people go through that journey and realize it's not the
No,
thing.
I think it's, yeah, I think it's important to say that this is not about pounds.
Yeah.
It's not, it probably is in some sense. We all need to be healthy, and whatever that body is healthy for you is what you strive for. But not everyone's going to have the same results. Not everyone's going to
Yeah.
have to lose 50 pounds, 100 pounds to be able to find that. That's an individual goal, right? So I want people to understand that the body positivity or that body shaming that we do internally isn't necessarily always about the weight. It could be height. It could be, right? It could be
Yeah.
other things. So I just want people who are listening to understand that although we're talking about this in the context of this, the bear community,
Yeah.
body shaming and body positivity comes in many different genres and forms.
Completely. I'm so glad you called that out because, yeah, a lot of my focus tends to be on bigger bodies, but we get all types of body types. So I've had people come and think that they're too skinny and they don't feel like they're taking up enough space. Or I'm working with a client who there's a whole nother element of like adjacent to the bear community, like the grower community that's trying to get bigger. And some people do that because they were scrawny and they want to take up more space and feel more substantial. and bring up height. I'm 5'4", so I grew up short, and I think that's why I related to people who are heavy when I was growing up, because I knew I'm getting treated differently because my body, and I'm seeing other people who are heavy getting treated differently too for an arbitrary reason. But I've spoken to I have a lot of women in my world, and they'll say, "Oh, I wish you did this for us." And my cousin was telling me about a friend or someone they know who just is like, objectively very pretty, or like standard classically pretty, but like they have an issue with their vulva or something that makes them really self-conscious. And it's like, you have no idea what people are going through. You
You
know,
don't.
penis size is a huge thing.
That's a
Some people
whole
might,
other that's a whole other
yeah, that's
podcast
part
episode.
two. That'll be part two.
Part
A
two.
lot of people in my Facebook group, because I run a Facebook group called the Belly Club, and some people have more estrogen, like I do. I have bigger boobs. It could be anything. I think it's
Mhm.
easy to. I think the difficulty with the weight is that societally we think that people who are heavy are lazy. So there's like a whole level of shame being put on them, whereas someone who is short, it's like they can't really control it. So there's
Mhm.
different level, but it doesn't mean that what you're going through, no matter what, is going to be difficult if you just look slightly different or you don't fit the norm of what society is built for.
Yeah, and I think more and more now in this environment that we're living in, I'm super heightened and sensitive to this conversation of just leave it alone. Let people be, let people
Yeah.
find themselves, let people discover who they are, let people work on themselves at their pace and let them be. I want to put it on a billboard and t-shirt and carry it around with me these days because there's so much societal pressure. And
Yeah.
now, not to bring our current situation involved, but now we're just all on attack and we're under
Yeah.
attack and on attack and being attacked. And there's nowhere to exhale. And so I want people who are listening to this podcast to think about what that could be like if that's not
Right.
your experience, that everyone's going to go through their process and through their journey. Women go through it. This is not something specifically geared towards the LGBTQ community, but I think it's people who feel always under that microscope. And that's when I go back now to the bear community, in that my experience of the community, and not to say that everyone's life is perfect and rainbows and unicorns, no one's life
Hmm.
is that way. But when they come to community and they celebrate and they are there to be with each other and to lift each other up, I have experienced no other joy like that as I have in the community. And the thing that I walk away with my friends that are part of the community, and I have one who keeps begging me to go to this event. I laugh because it starts at 10 o'clock on a Friday night. And I'm like, dude, I'm in bed by
Yeah.
8 o'clock.
I have Downton Abbey on.
I'm watching Downton Abbey and I am down for the count. So one of these days I'll take a nap and go. But I love the experience of the community because I think there is such a level of support and a level
Yeah.
of non-comparison. And I think that's what's so powerful about it and why I'm encouraging my friends to get involved in the community. And I'll liken this to when we go back and talk about the community and how it's sometimes even segregated within our own community, right? It's
Yeah.
usually the cisgendered white gay male group over here, and the lesbians are over here, and the bisexual people are over here, and the bears are over here, and the femmes are over here. It's all segregated. And I've always heard
Yeah.
conversations about we don't have a seat at your table. We've never felt included. And I walk around this world saying, all right, let's build a new table because I
Yeah.
want that in my life. I want to be involved and engaged in communities within my own community because it is so beautiful. And I don't say this to pat myself on the back at all, but I started a local networking group for LGBTQ plus professionals. And I remember
Nice.
saying to the founder, who's based in New York, I said, I'm not going to start this thing unless we have representation from every letter of the acronym and every subgroup within. And what that's going to take is it's going to take some work because there's conversations floating around that they don't belong or they don't have a space in our group. And I said, I will not run this if it's another bunch of white gay guys standing around a bar eating cube cheese and salami, drinking a
Yeah. Yeah.
beer. That's not networking to me. And we were very successful at it. We worked hard to
Wow.
build that community. And the lesbian community would come and say, oh my gosh, thank you for building this. The trans community would be there. Never saw trans people at a networking event. Rarely, I should say, not never. It was surprising to me. And then we started to see members of the bear community. I was having a conversation with someone one day about his being so proud to be an otter. And I don't think I talked to anyone else in that room for 2 hours. I was so transfixed on his
Hmm.
story about being an otter. I just was in love with this guy. I loved every minute of it. And I remembered walking away feeling super joyful. And so I think that the community has a lot to teach the rest of the community in the world. And I'm so excited that you are out leading these individual coaching sessions for your clients, but then also dealing with it from a community standpoint. I want to talk a little bit about your retreat and
Yeah.
experience there. What does it feel like for you to be the facilitator when a group of people who have a shared and common goal, if you will, that come together and watching the process of transformation? What is that like for you? And I ask that because
Mm.
of your past experience and your journey. I want to know what that feels like to watch people that you're now helping find themselves in that way.
Yeah, I feel honored. It to me it's mind blowing. Like the first time I did a retreat in Portugal was 2022, and I've been doing classes in New York for about 10 years. So on a smaller scale, I've seen it. Like I'll do a cuddle pile and people will come into the room nervous and nobody knows each other. And by the end, people are connected and opening up, and some people are crying and sharing, and that's has always blown my mind. The retreats are just that times 100.
Uh-huh.
So the first retreat I did in Portugal, at the end we do like a closing ceremony and people are sharing, and because I didn't know what was going to happen. I thought it was wild that people even flew to Portugal to be a part of this. To me it all blew my mind, but for it to go so well and for people to connect so fast and to share and be open, and you're talking about being on the dance floor taking your shirt off. We had one guy who never took his shirt off in public, probably his whole life. And at the pool at the house, he wouldn't take his shirt off, and then went to the beach, didn't take his shirt off. And then that same day we went to the lagoon, and my co-host Marcelo helped him take his shirt off, and he met us in the water. And we're all cheering him on, and I probably started crying then. But and then after the retreat ended, he took a photo of him at the pool alone with his shirt off, being like, "Hey, I'm doing it still." So to me, it's that's worth the 10 plus years of work I've been doing. But in the closing ceremony, I remember people opening up and crying and just saying how special it was that they had a space to be themselves and to hear
Mhm.
other people's experiences and to grow. And when I got to me, I just started bawling. Like it was like a release that had been building up in me for a decade. Because historically, I always thought of myself as being bad. Like I grew up a bad child. Like parents didn't want me to be around their kids, and I got in trouble, and I didn't think I was capable of doing anything. Like my self-esteem and my like how I viewed myself in terms of what I was capable of doing was on the floor for most of my life. So the fact that I pulled this off and ran a retreat in Portugal and that it went well, it was like a message of I am not bad, I am good, and I built this thing, and this experience happened, and no one can take that away from me. Like this is going to be long lasting for the people who
Mhm.
came, and then for me as well.
Yeah.
And that's happened every time. Now we're on like the fourth year of retreats, and I'm somebody who I need to do something well a million times to believe it. So the second time it went well, I was like, okay, I can do this. Fourth, fifth, it's like, all right, the magic is there, it's happening. And it's not just me, it's like I'm co-creating a
Mhm.
space, and all the people involved and all the guests are supporting each other. And to me, that's the most beautiful thing. It's not
Yeah.
me, it's the space that we're creating. And it's something I need as well. So it's like
Mhm.
self-consciously or subconsciously, I've created this for me too.
Yep.
So it's just absolutely beautiful. It like gives me goosebumps, to be honest.
It's so cool. I've got goosebumps just thinking about it, but I don't normally correct my guests on my podcast, but I will tell you, it is you. It is you because you have to create the space. So you do bring that to the space. I will believe that until the day that I am no longer on this earth is that energy that you have and that love and that
Mhm.
compassion and that experience that you have, you bring to that. Because if you didn't bring that to Portugal, it doesn't matter. It wouldn't have happened. So please give yourself the credit for that. I think it's
Thank
definitely
you.
worth it. I want to see this picture because I think that's great. I just think that's phenomenal. And I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to experience that. I got to talk for a second, though, about this cuddle pile because I have
I
heard
have it
about that.
on
I
my
know I saw it on your
shirt.
shirt. So I want, as our listeners, because again, I have listeners all over the world, And I think we're in like 19 countries now, which is crazy. You talk about crazy and
Wow.
building a retreat and having people fly out there. I still can't believe that I have people. In fact, I have some great listeners in Portugal, and I know who they are because they've reached out. But it
Olá,
still
tudo
blows.
bem?
Yeah,
I speak
exactly.
some Portuguese, yeah.
You, it's on my short list of potentially living there someday. But
Talk to me.
um,
I know I can help.
I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to go back and meet Marcelo, the barista from the coffee shop that I visited frequently during my time in Lisbon.
Nice.
Anyway, I digress. That's a whole other discussion. But I'm fascinated by this because I've been thinking a lot about this lately in this intimacy between friends and this level of connection. I think, I don't think, I know COVID really, and I'm going to use my own word, fucked us up in terms of our connection and our emotional connection and our intimate connection. And I've always wondered, even prior to that, is there a sense of fear in being intimate with our friends? And I don't mean sex intimate. And yes, the community has a stereotype of we just have sex with our friends and blah, 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 whatever. But there are times when I feel that we're so oppressed that we can't show that affection and that affinity to even our friends. And so the cuddle pile thing is fascinating to me. I interviewed someone who's an intimacy coach, learned a
Hmm,
lot about her and about the female perspective. Trust me on that
cool.
episode, which was great, and how she teaches intimacy and what she does as an intimacy surrogate. It's fascinating. But talk to us a little bit about this experience because you said they come in, they're a little nervous, and by the end, I think there is nothing more beautiful than that sense of community and that sense of connectedness, especially now. But why is that so fearful? Why are we afraid to show that intimacy?
I can only speak for myself.
Yeah.
I think I grew up with a mom who has borderline personality disorder, so intimacy was very confusing, and I had a feeling of not wanting people around me because she was too intense. And so that's my experience, but I think most people grow up and intimacy is not very clear with between parents and children, and especially in the gay community. Yes, I feel like for my straight friends, I'm like they need a lot of cuddle piles because there's so many issues there. But I think
Mm.
societally, like we just have an issue around touch in the
Mm.
US in particular, like we were talking about
Yes.
Europe. Like same thing when I went to Europe in my 20s, or I went to Europe my whole life since I was 3, but like when I was in my 20s coming through my coming out phase, having straight friends hold you or touch you or just not being afraid of it and not being afraid of coming off as gay, it's really
Hmm.
important. So I think in the US we just have that problem, and I really believe that's what causes a lot of anger and shootings and just so many issues in our society. So I think we all have our issues around it. For me, it was like I didn't understand the boundary between if someone's being intimate with me, what does it mean? So I had to work a lot about just like the boundary between if someone's just being intimate and like where does that lead to sex, and it's a very gray area. And actually it was from going to retreats and being in spaces where I
Yes.
felt comfortable, where I could just sit and hold somebody or touch somebody and know this is what it is. It's nothing more was
Hmm.
important to me. But if I didn't have those environments, I don't know if I would have gotten there. But I think it's different for everybody. Some people who come to the cuddle piles have past traumas, or some people don't get any intimacy, so you don't really have an opportunity to even explore it because the only time you can be intimate is if it is sex, and it goes from intimate to sex fast. So I think
Hmm.
we just lack that environment where we can play around with it and see the benefit.
Is your experience, because I've experienced this as well, but this concept of European openness is they're very touchy. They're very comfortable in this same sex holding hands and not having it mean something or having it immediately describe you and cast you into a stereotype. I think it's really
Yeah.
wonderful. That's been my experience. I think it was great. In fact, Marcelo, the coffee barista, I don't even know if he was gay or not. I just loved spending my days sitting, having a coffee and a pastel de nata or four
Yes.
or six and just watching him work. He was and still is become a friend, and he was very affectionate, and he was very, there was no sense of, although I probably would have liked to have, but there was no sense
Sure.
of let's just go jump into bed right now. There was just this daily fun interaction. And I love that. I think that was amazing. I come here, I would no sooner say hi to Mark, the cute barista at Starbucks around the corner from me, for my life. What's he gonna put my coffee?
Yeah, yeah.
It's just
Oh,
all this stuff
completely.
runs through your head. It's crazy.
I have. Yeah, I think that's part of the fear of being gay and being in a violent society like ours, where if you do say the wrong thing, what's going to happen? I think if you're around people who are just comfortable with themselves and their sexuality, it just makes you feel comfortable. And
Mhm.
same thing, I have friends in Portugal that I've known since I was 20 who still go and see every year, and they have kids now, and I get to be the gay American uncle. But they're so comfortable. Like we'll get close, and they're also caretakers
Mhm.
in a way that a lot of Americans are not. Like my friend in Portugal, like he'll cook, he'll clean, he'll always be like, "What do you need?" Like, he really tends to me. Like he's like very nurturing, and I don't think we get a lot of that in this country.
Yeah.
There's some good ones out there, but
But we've had to create our own community, and it's exactly what you're doing, right? We've had to
yeah,
create our own community. And I think we've had to, I keep saying I think, I don't think, I know these things. We are not comfortable for the most part going outside of our circle, outside of our comfort zone for
yeah,
fear of what that might mean, or someone might say something, or are we going to get beat up or shot, or whatever the case may be. And that fear that we live in is what I believe causes us to make bad decisions about our health and to make bad decisions about our life and make decisions that aren't necessarily true or based out of truth, I should say. And so I love the fact that, again, you're creating an environment where not only are people individually finding their love of their self, love of their body, love of their being, love of their space, but they're also getting to experience what it means to be a part of a community. In this case, the bear community, as you are so affectionately referred to as Coach Cub. I love that.
yeah.
But led by somebody who has a deep understanding of what community can do, what self love can do, and how when you marry the two of those together, it's magical. It really is magical. And it allows us, I feel, to not feel alone on this island that is sometimes sinking. And it allows
Hmm.
us to be able to rely on a group of people that are there to lift us up. Do you know Mama Tits? She's the drag queen in Puerto Vallarta. Have you heard of her?
No, I've never
Uh,
been out there. I would like to go, but no, I don't know Mama Tits.
th- this woman, she and David in Puerto Vallarta changed my life in
Nice.
many ways. But we went to Mama Tits' show. She has her own show in Puerto Vallarta. And listen, she is raunchy as all hell. She is brash. She is big. She is outrageous. But she had this moment, and I will never forget her. It changed my life in that moment after going through divorce
Mm.
and COVID and companies shutting down and craziness and fear and all of that. I'm sitting in Puerto Vallarta feeling very vulnerable and very much in the space of I need to protect myself and I need to protect my
Yeah,
mental health. And I will never forget she at the very closing end of her show, and I've told her that she's been a guest on the podcast. And I told her this. I said, "You said something
nice.
that changed my life." And I've told this to thousands of people, and that is surround yourself with people who celebrate you. And for a lot of us, and a lot of people that I've mentioned that to, they instantly, the knee jerk reaction, and what I'd like to call, did the thought think you or did you think the thought? The thought
Hmm.
thinks them. If I surround myself with people who celebrate me, I'm selfish and I am full of myself and I'm arrogant and narcissistic.
Yeah.
And I say quite the contrary. You want to surround yourself with people who celebrate you for who you are, flaws and all. And so I know we could probably talk forever. I want to be respectful of your time.
Oh no,
So
I'm
I,
loving all of
I want
this.
to invite you back. I want to invite you back to be a guest again. There's so much to talk about.
Yeah,
I do want to say a couple final things, and then I have two final questions for you.
cool.
Again, I just want to say thank you for who you are in the world and that you are out making a difference in the lives of so many people. The other thing I want to say is that many people that I talk to on this podcast who are out doing the work that you're doing don't really take the time to acknowledge themselves and to recognize that if you make a difference in one person's life about their body positivity or just who they are as a human being, that is going to trickle out into the universe. So the impact that's felt by people like you in
Mhm.
this world, you may never know, Jon, the impact that you make. And I want you to, it's going to make me cry. I want you to live your
Right.
days knowing that you're out making a difference and making an impact in people that you may never even know. And so hold that with you because you are. Your content
Thank you.
is wonderful. I love following you. Makes me feel like I have a friend on the East Coast that I hadn't met until today. So I want to say thank you for that. I want to know two last things. What's next for you? What do you see aside from your podcast, aside from these retreats? What's next for Jon?
Mm. Ooh, I just want to internalize everything you just said. It's very you. What is next for me? So I've been building up my community virtually on Facebook. So we have the Belly Club, and it's interesting. Like it originally was just all New York centric stuff because that's where I am. But then because of COVID, everything went online. So now we have people from all over the world. So we're building up that community. And I just launched a membership program that goes along with it. So if people want ways to connect virtually, each month we just did a mobility class last night with a well-known body positive trainer called Roy Belsner. We do 2 meditations a month. I do a community discussion, and then we do a community, like a fun community event. So it's brand new and we're like building it up. So I'm curious to see where that leads us because I would love to bring in, like, I have a yoga teacher I may bring in to teach a class. Like, I have a lot of good chefs, bear chefs around who will teach. So it's, I want to really build that up and see where that goes. And then the thing I'm working on now is this body image course that is kind of like an intro to like creating a better relationship with your body. A lot of the topics we just talked about. So I'm in the midst of building that, and I'm going to get it out in the next maybe 2 months and then see where that takes me if I
Mhm.
will continue creating courses. I do a lot of just figure it out as I go. Since I started, I'm like this works. Like my group started as a picnicking group in Prospect Park, Brooklyn, and now it's like I'm doing a wine retreat in Portugal. So I really just keep it open to see where things take me. But it will be a lot of community events, live community events, more retreats. I have a bunch of retreats coming up this summer, and then eventually I may go back to school to become a therapist and start incorporating a lot of that work into what I'm doing. So we'll see. But yeah, it's in the near future. It's the course, it's the membership. I have a retreat I'm running in Portugal in May around Bear Pride as a way for people to be a part of these bigger bear events, but with a supportive group and with our loving environment. I have a food tour in Maine with a well-known chef was on Next Level Chef. His name is Jonathan Harrison. He's from Alabama. We're doing a food tour together, and then I'm back in Portugal running a wine retreat in August. And then I'll do an upstate New York wellness retreat and then see where it goes. And I never really know 6 months out what
Love
I'm
it.
doing, but I'm just creating as I go. But yeah, a lot more opportunities to bring people together. That's really like my big focus is that the sense of community.
Yeah. We're going to make sure to put a link to your website, and we'll put a link to your Facebook group, and we'll make sure that people can get access. And I encourage our listeners and those in the community to reach out and to explore a little bit about Jon Fischer and his extraordinary work. And you said it. So I'm just going to say this one last time before I ask you my last question, is that you said that there was this intuitiveness inside of you to know that there was something for you moving forward in your life. And this is it, my friend. We are all on this earth to be of service to others. That's why we're here. And those that get that and realize that and manifest that and enrich it and enhance it are the ones that are out really celebrating what it means to be a human being in life. So you knew that this was ultimately going to be your calling. So I'm grateful that you are doing this. My last question to you is, if you could go back to that young Jon in his childhood, what would you tell him about his life today?
Oh boy, let's see. I'm like, now I'll start crying. But yeah, I think I would say you tried your hardest to trust yourself. You the things that you did to survive and fit in and navigate your childhood were for a reason, and you didn't have the tools and the guidance and parenting to navigate those things. Although they may seem difficult, they make you who you are as an adult. And yeah, eventually you'll embrace who you are and learn to not criticize yourself, and you'll lean into your gifts, and you're going to meet the most amazing people. The more that you open up and become yourself, the better life will get. And you won't believe it, but you'll be drinking wine in Portugal with bears and running a business around the things that made you most insecure, which is what I've done.
Mm.
Yeah, life will keep getting, it'll get difficult and better and difficult and better, and just keep learning and growing and putting in the work.
So I wasn't going to say anything after this, but I have to because you said the golden ticket, and that is that you're doing things that you were most insecure about.
Yeah.
And that is probably the most powerful message we can go out on this podcast. The things that make us insecure, the things that make us fearful are the things that sometimes bring us the most amount of pleasure in our adulthood and the most amount of difference that we make. The world is a better place with you in it, Jon. I want you to know that. My life is better from having met you. I'm super excited to have spent some time with you today. I do want you to come back. I also want to investigate some of these retreats in Portugal. That might be.
I was going to say, come, we'll reconnect you with Marcelo. My co-host, his name is Marcelo,
I
but
know.
it's not.
That's what I thought was
him.
funny. It's not the barista. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, come out to New York and explore Cuddle Pile.
We'll do it.
The number one rule with Cuddle Piles is just do what's best for you. So if you want to just come and watch, that's fine. And I'm going to be posting my Instagram. I had a professional photographer, take photos last weekend of the Cuddle Pile, and I'm putting them out, and they just look so beautiful. So
I love it.
I love to be involved in your networking stuff. It sounds really neat.
We'll definitely get you hooked up with that in New York. I think it could be fun.
Cool.
So thank you for your time today, and thank you for being here, and thank you for being the difference that you are.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Take care.
Ciao.
All right, everyone. Thank you again for joining us on today's episode. I hope our conversation resonated with you like it did me, and I cannot wait to sit down with you all again next week. Remember to subscribe to the Just You podcast on your favorite platform so you can make sure not to miss a new episode, which drop every Thursday. If you like what you hear, you can easily share the podcast and episode directly with your friends. And if you would, rate us and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. You can also follow us on Instagram at JustDoYouPod. As you go out into the world today, remember to just do you. All right, talk next week.